Hi, Angie here from Crafts at Home. Welcome back to this video series where I'm going to be featuring the art of quilting from Shape Artworks. Hopefully you will have completed up to issue 15 and have them stored ironed and flat ready for joining in later issues. With this issue we'll be making the Road to Oklahoma block and you'll be receiving the royal blue, pomegranate, sky blue spot and white on white spot fabrics. Before you begin, iron all of your fabrics so they're nice and flat, as this will make it easier to work with and improve the overall finish of your quilt. As the blocks continue to increase in difficulty, it's important to read through the instructions. Make sure your cutting layouts are correct and take notice if you need to flip a template over for multiple pieces. Let's start marking and cutting. So I've put all the markings as per the cutting layouts on my 4 fabrics. Now with the white and white spot and the pomegranate, I've actually laid them over the top, making sure the bottom edge and the side meet, and I'll cut these out together. So just making sure that everything meets up your edges. Put your ruler on, guard off and cut up. Because I have got 2 fabrics laid together here, I'm just pressing that a little bit more firmly on the ruler to make sure that the fabric doesn't move. And I'm also not moving the fabrics after I've cut them. So I'll take away that scrap, then I'll turn the whole board around and use my long ruler making sure I've got a nice even pressure. And there we go. I'm just going to pop and do the rest of the fabrics and I'll see you back here soon. So as usual, I've laid out all my pieces as the finished square is going to be. Now the first thing we're going to do is pair up the pink pomegranate and the white on white spot squares. So just double check that you've got your white the right way up and put it down, face down onto the pomegranate. So just take 2 pins and pin them together. Just make sure that everything is squared up nicely. And just carry on doing that till you've got 4 pairs of white on white and pomegranate squares. Pop a pin that side. Again, it's important to just take some time to make sure everything is perfect. Just makes it easier when it comes to matching everything up with the other pieces. And then them 2. And the final pin in that corner. So I'm going to meet you over at the sewing machine and we'll chain piece these 4 squares together, and I'll see you there in a moment. So I'm just going to quickly chain piece these 4 together. So as usual, you start with your needle down, you set to your 6mm mark, and sew on to the first. Take out your first pin and carry on to your next one. Then you pop your next square in, mark up again, onto your first pin, your third square, and then pop your final square in. I'm just going to get my stitch saver from the back and pop that back through. Cut off at the back, and then we have 4 chain pieced squares into rectangles. So I'll see you over at the ironing board in a moment. So now we've got the first 4 pieces chain stitched. I've snipped them apart and we're just about to iron. Need to iron open onto the white. So again, white up, set your seam, and then iron open. So I'll do these for all 4. A lot of people ask me, why do I iron over and set the seam first? Just to make sure that your thread actually stays flat. So when you're ironing open, because you've set it and you set it down into the fabric, it just makes it a lot smoother. Makes it easier to marry up with your next piece, it makes it easier to sew over. Just gives a flatter looking quilt as well for when you've finished, so you don't have bubbles where all your seams would be. So next off, we're going to pair them up opposite. So put them on, put them over, and we've got nesting seams which we love working with. Just make sure that they are nice and central, and then pop a pin through. So I'm going to pop one at that end as well, and again at this end. So we'll do the same with these. We set them opposite to each other, flip over again because we've ironed them all the same way. We've got a nice nesting seam to work with. if you want to be sure that you've got that nesting seam right, hold it together and then open up, and as you can see, that's a perfect nesting seam. It matches really nicely. So then just pop a pin through to hold it together. Again, one on each side. And there we are. Right, I'm going to pop and sew both of these and I'll be back in a moment. Now we've got those two seams sewn, the first thing you want to double check is that you've got your nesting seams that are matching. Mine are spot on. Then you want to iron them open. It doesn't matter which way that you open out to on this side. So that is your opposite two squares completed. Now we're going to put those to the side for now and we'll be using them again later. Next we have our blues. Now we need to mark these, so I've paired them up ready, but you want to take one and you need to mark along the long edge and then down the short with your 6mm seam allowance. Now I'm going to use an air erasable pen. First of all, I'd double check that it works on the fabric that you want to use it on. I always do a test piece as well to make sure that it does erase itself, because some fabrics it can be a bit dodgy with. So I'm going to work my seam out to start with, and that is my 6mm line. So I've done that seam and now I'm going to do the other one. So that'll be there. So that's that one. Then I'm going to do this one as well. It's because we're working with inset seams that you need to do your marking if you're not confident. There's still a lot of professionals as well that do their marking just to make sure that they get it completely spot on and there's no issues. So I'm going to go along this edge. I'm also making sure that it's square by going across my grid lines on the bottom as well. Now this is an air erasable pen, so depending on your fabric depends on how quick it erases as well. And this one is already erasing, so I'm going to work quickly. I'm going to pop a pin in. I'm going to pop another pin in. You want to do this for both, and then you want to sew from that point end to the intersection on where that seam is. And you want to do that on both of them. I'm just going to quickly pin this together. So again, from the end to the intersection on where that lies. I'm going to go and quickly sew these together and I'll be back in a moment. So I'm just going to explain quickly how to snip these apart. So where it's on the point, I just snip that straight. And then where it's not quite at the edge, but you've back sewed, just go on each side and snip off the excess, just to tidy that up. So now we need to inset the blue piece. So if you gently hold it open, get your first piece. Now I like, as you see, I've marked it as well. So I'm going to turn that over, but then fold over so I know where it is. And you just set in, meeting up on your corner. And then you do the same down here. But the good thing is, because of where you've marked the seam there, it's exactly on the fold. So you go from the edge to that intersection cross there. Just going to do the same quickly with this one. So you open up, have your cross at the bottom, right side up, but then turn over, match your edge corners up, pop a pin quickly in there, making sure that everything's still matched up. You pop a pin there. So again, you go from that edge to the cross intersection, which again is bang on that seam running down. So I'm going to go and sew these two, and I'll be back in a moment. So as you can see, I've now sewn from the edge up to that joining seam. So now we're going to inset the seam. So if I take this one to start with, now you've got to set that and take it round. So put a finger underneath there to keep it up, hold that, flip back and fold over. So that's what it will look like from the right side. So now once you've got that in position, you just match up your edges and pop a couple of pins in. Now with this seam, I prefer to sew from the inside there out. So I will follow this line that I drew on before. I'll fold that back like that. I will start from that point where I finished the last seam and come out. But when I start here, I will do a couple of reinforcement stitches first. So I'll show you that again. Fold that back, put a finger in there, grab that one and take it over. So all your fabric is folded straight away in the right direction. Just marry your seams up and pin. So if I show you what this is like, if you fold over that square in half, corner to corner, you can see then that it's in between and everything lies flat. So if you just then open it out, so when you sew that seam, nothing will be in the way apart from what you do want to sew. So again, I will sew from my cross of my pencil line, do a couple of reinforcement stitches and sew all the way out. I'm going to pop over to my sewing machine and do that quickly, and I'll see you back here in a moment. So now we've got both seams done either side of the square, I'm going to iron them open. So you're going to lay it down. I have the light blue towards me and just iron the light blue flat, and then iron the seam of the diamonds to one side. You will have that little bit of bulk on that corner, but as long as you give it a nice good press, it should lie quite flat. And there we have a perfect inset seam. Going to repeat on here. So again, make sure that the light blue is flat. And then that to one side. So there is a perfect, again, inset seam. Now, if we bring in our triangles, these are to attach next. So take one triangle and put it right side to right side at the edge. So it'll fold over like that. Now you want to marry up your corners perfectly and pin in place. It's just a case of taking a bit of extra time to make sure you've got all your seams nice and flat as usual, and everything lines up nicely. Then you can twist this around and you can do the other side as well. So again, just make sure that you've got everything lying nice and flat. If you want, you can do what I've done and pin the seams down. Just make sure as you're running them through that it doesn't move too much. So there we are. And you can go and do the other one as well. So again, lie down, make sure everything is nice and flat. And pin in place. Marry up with the other side. You are working on a bias here with your light blue, so just be careful that you don't stretch anything out of place. Again, triangle on perfectly. So there we go. Now I'm going to go and sew these 4 seams, and I'll be back in a moment to show you how to start putting it all together. So I've now gone and sewn these two seams. So we're going to iron open just as normal. So we're going to iron outwards. So just iron it nice and flat. And then again on the other side. And then repeat with this one. So now we have all four corner pieces that are ready to place together. There we are. So the first thing we do is turn over, and then we can pin the two edges together. So just match everything up nicely. Now if you've got everything right, then when you open it up, the point of that should match with your centre seam. So the way to check, you can see where these seams intersect. Just pop your pin in at that seam and just check where you are with relation to your blue point, and that's pretty close. Just going to do a little adjusting. There we are, and pop a pin back in. So I'm going to do the same on this seam. And as you can see, that matches up really nicely. I'm going to pin just to the side because that's quite a thick seam there. And then match up the other end. And there we are. So I'm just going to go and sew these two seams, and I'll be back in a moment. So I've gone along these two seams here, and as I've opened them out, I've done my seams just slightly too narrow. But as I've done it on both, I'm going to leave it as it is. If you wanted to, you could unpick and re-sew. It's just how fussy you are. So I'm going to set my seam and then open out towards the blue. That's one side. And there's the other side. So we want to twist them round. So the arrow's still pointing out. Then you want to flip them over, and the middle seam will marry up here as well, and it's an opposite seam. So I'll do that seam first so we get a perfect centre point. and then it's again the same on the little blue point corners on these. So I'll have a look and see if they match. That's a bit thick on the seam, so I'm going to go to the side and then pin on the end. And then exactly the same on this other one. That's matching on that centre seam. Again, I'm going to step in just so it's not too much to actually pin through, and go to the end. So now I've got that pinned, I'm going to sew along this final seam, and I'll see you back here in a moment. So now I've sewn across this final seam, I've opened and double checked, everything's lining up. I've gone a little bit lean on my seam again, but I'm going to leave it since it matches the others. So the first thing to do is set the seam, then we're going to open and iron the seam open and flat. So there is a lot of cross intersections to do on this one, so you just need to take it really slowly. Make sure you don't disrupt any of the other seams as you go in through to the middle. And let that one back down. I'm actually going to carry on a nice big bulky one there. Give it a bit of steam, and there we are. And that is our completed Road to Oklahoma. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video and the Road to Oklahoma block that we've created. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified of our new videos. Further information about Crafts at Home, Crafts at Home Forum, the Art of Quilting and Hashope Artworks can be found on the social media pages which are listed in the description. Don't forget to join us next week for issue 17, where we'll be making the checker star block. Bye for now.